Welcome to Quack&Co, the board game channel where every video is 10 minutes or less guaranteed, and today, on Monday Musings, I'm asking a very simple question. Should I own games that I don't think I'll ever get to the table? It's a question about your collection, right? The 700 plus games we have here in the studio, the 250 or so that are in our permanent collection. As far as Shira and I go, we have two calyxfuls, a calyx apiece worth of board games. And some of those games that I have tucked away in the corners and hidden downstairs on top of shelves are games like this masterpiece and this behemoth, Roads and Boats. This is probably my favorite Splatter game of all time. And I know Bus is my favorite game of all time, so how can this be my favorite Splatter game of all time? Well, it's very simple. I love this game. I love playing this game. If I could choose to play any Splatter game, period, I would choose to play Roads and Boats. If I had unlimited time and a resource of friends that instantly knew the game that I picked, this is the one that's coming off the shelf and onto the table. But remember the question that I posed at the start of this video: should I own games that I'm very confident I won't play? Roads and Boats is one of these multitude of games, and I could list many more that I just don't see myself actually getting off the shelf and onto the table for a variety of reasons. Some of these games are too big, too ambitious, too heavy. The rules overhead is just completely daunting for me to learn, table, and teach to the group of people that I typically have sitting around. I mean, I can think of like Space Empires 4X, a game that I specifically played and fell in love with during a period of time where I had a friend who learned, studied, and perfected the rules to that game, was able to hold my hand and walk me through and get me up and running, and maybe I will find another person like that one of these days. But the odds are that if I do find someone like that, they will have a copy of the game that they are obsessed with enough that they want to teach me. And I'll be glad and grateful for just going down on the ride. I mean, Roads and Boats is that example. My game group here in Cleveland, Matt and Andrew and Shira, you've met them all before. They are Splatter heads. And we just got done doing Splatter, what is it? It's the Splatter Expo, the I've completely Splatter Bowl. We just got done doing Splatter Bowl 2023, where we get together and we play through as many of the Splatter games as we can, games that they adore and love. And not for a single one of those games, outside of the brand new one, which is the only one that I actually own, that they don't, Horseless Carriage, every other game we played in this roster was owned by them, was upgraded by them, was deluxeified by them. So if I ever find a friend who's willing to play Space Empires 4X or Roads and Boats with me, the odds are they'll have their own copy of that game because they love it, because they enjoy it, because they wanted to teach it to me in the first place. So, should I own this? I mean, I don't think I will actually get my copy of Roads and Boats to the table anytime soon. The people who I play this game with already own a copy, and it's better than mine. If I wanted to teach anyone, I would have to introduce them to it and go through the process of sorting, organizing, and upgrading my own copy of it to bring it to a playable state, because right now, in the box, just out of the shrink wrap, it's really not prepared to be played. That's another problem that I have with a lot of the games that are downstairs in my collection. They're not hard to teach. They're not overwhelming to get to the table, but the problem is they're not ready to get to the table. They're not punched or organized or sorted. The deluxeified components that you need to actually make them experiential or playable, the rulebook guidelines or the extra little player aids you have to print out and cut out and hand over to your players just aren't there. It's one of the reasons why I sold Black Rose Wars. And I'm excited for the next wave, the next version of Black Rose Wars to arrive. Because the original was too much for me. It was too hard for me to actually get to the table. It was too hard for me to actually play. And this new version might be a little bit more accessible. I might be able to rip it off the shelf and not feel like I have to sort and organize and do everything necessary in order to get it back to the table. Roads and Boats is not that. Roads and Boats is a favorite. But it's not organized. It's not sorted. It's not easy to teach. It's not easy to table. It requires a lot of time to play. It requires a player group that have to be some degree of obsessed with splatter titles to be willing to learn and table it. And if I'm taking all that on myself, I just don't think I'll play this game. And at the same time, you could offer me just about any amount in the comment section down below, and I would not sell this copy to you. I might give it to you for 50,000 subscribers or some ridiculous number like that, but I just would not get rid of Roads and Boats. It's too good. It's too much of a masterpiece. I'm too satisfied and happy just having it in my collection. I'm comforted by the fact that in 10 or 20 years, if I do have that odd one-off game group that would love to play this title but don't own a copy of it themselves because it's rare, hard, or expensive to find, maybe, just maybe, my copy will be pulled off the shelf and will be the thing that actually bridges the gap, that invites people in, that encourages them to explore and play a game that I have historically found incredible. But what are the odds of that happening? And not only happening with this one title that I'm holding on to, but probably the other 50 or so titles that I have. They range from heavy Euros to ambitious campaign games that I promise myself one day in the future I will be able to play and explore. It bridges over into things like RPG books and D&D adventures that I am sure one of these days I will have the right gaming group to allow me and facilitate me to play RPGs. And of course, they're going to need all of the books that I've hoarded onto a bookshelf downstairs, the 50 or 60 adventures that I have that would be enough to run a full campaign for a year plus on their own. It's going to extend to some of the prototypes that I've held on to, that are games that you, the player or the viewer, may never get a chance to play. And I don't know that I will either. I don't know that I want to dive back into them, but I want to own them. I want to keep them. I want to have them because they're a little piece of history, a game that I thought was incredible or interesting or at least cool that never got made. A game like Prison Architect or I'm completely blanking, Far Cry, for instance. I think these things are cool. I like owning these things. But back to the question, again, the establishing concept here, should I? Should I own games that I genuinely don't think I will ever play? And if I should, if it's okay to have a few of those titles in my collection, where's the limit? What is the maximum amount of games that you can have stuck onto the side of a shelf before you start admitting you have maybe too many board games, or at least too many unplayed board games? I think for me, it's got to be a more realistic number. 10, 15, 20, something in that range. It can't be 50. It can't be 100 games that are stuck off to the sidelines. And maybe it's one of those things that Cher and I sit down with in this next season of our life and we take a hard look at. Are we playing Roads and Boats? If we aren't, why are we keeping it? And if the argument's good enough, if it's strong enough, if it's one of those games that you just cannot let go, maybe then something else needs to move on. A game that isn't as good, is not as big of a masterpiece, a game that would not be prioritized over this one if the opportunity came forward. I've got a few other splotters that I'd be willing to let go in defense of this monstrosity. So, those are my thoughts, those are my questions. This is a Monday Musing episode, which means the entire point of it is to have a conversation with you, the audience. Let me know down below what you think, and remember, more time watching means less time playing. That's why you need to subscribe here to Quack&Co, where every video is 10 minutes or less. We'll see you next time.